very apropos for the times. And I want to talk about how you gain control when you lose a job or a loved one dies, when illness strikes or some other tragedy. And right now, so many people are just experiencing so much tragedy. The stress can just hijack your life and your brain unless you're armed with the right tools. So we want to talk about how to turn that around. And today I'm really happy to introduce you to Dr. Jennifer Love. She is one of our Amen Clinic's doctors, and she's board certified in psychiatry, addiction psychiatry, and addiction medicine. She's a diplomat of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology and the American Board of Addiction Medicine, worked at a chemical dependency rehabilitation program prior to joining Amen Clinics. And she's an award-winning researcher and international speaker interested in the interface between cultural and spiritual factors in overall mental health. Her work focuses on restoring life balance, brain and body health, and helping her patients improve their functionality and satisfaction in life. Her specialties include mood disorders, substance abuse disorders, anxiety disorders, anger and irritability, behavioral addictions, co-occurring pain, and opioid dependence. And very interestingly, if you believe in coincidence, which I don't, Dr. called When Crisis Strikes, 5 Steps to Heal Your Brain, Body, and Life from Chronic Stress. Talk about timing. And I know you didn't know this was going to happen when you started that book, because I also have a new book out, and it takes about 1.5 to 2 years. So you can't possibly know what's going to be going on, right? How crazy is that? Welcome.
Right. I turned in the first edition of the book. The due date was January 1st. And so 2 months later, it was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm under contract and I can't, disclose any of the things in the book. And I was just sitting on my hands going crazy. And now we're getting to that point. It's on pre-sale on Amazon. I can start talking about it now. And I have a little more freedom in terms of what I can say. But certainly, the context right now, I think globally, is one of crisis, of economic crisis and health crisis and everything. But we're all in the same sea, but we're in our own boats. Mm-hmm. And so we all are experiencing what's going on very differently for various reasons. And so in addition to everything that's going on, people are still having health crises, and school crises, and you just name it, life continues.
And it seems like no matter what your life stage, no matter what your background, cultural background, it doesn't matter. You definitely have some stress at this point, whether it's because you are not working in your home with your kids and you don't know how you're going to deal with childcare in school, whether it's because you've lost a loved one, whether it's because the social stuff is getting to you. I mean, there's definitely not been a time in my lifetime that we have experienced all these things at once. And right. It's just a very, very fascinating time. Mm-hmm. So I think some people would say, oh, that's bad timing to have a book released during this time, because obviously it's very hard to market a book when the airwaves are just being dominated by, crisis, 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 crisis. But I actually disagree. If it's a book that addresses what people are really going through, I think it's not a bad time. I think people need to not have the news on so much, which is stirring up their anxiety and hijacking their amygdala in their brain. Yes. They need real practical strategies. They need to actually know what's going on and then have a strategy for fixing it. And so talk to us about that. How is your body supposed to react to stress?
So we have to take a shift. What you're saying is from the doom scrolling into actually starting about it.
Doom scrolling, I like that.
Doom scrolling, yeah. So we have doom surfing on the internet, and we have doom scrolling on our phones. We are inundated by this. And I think at the beginning, we're wired to seek information because we're wired for safety. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we need to know where everything is. We need to have an understanding of it. But we all know we hit that point of no return. So every day I have the conversation several times with patients, and they tell me about watching the news and how stressful it is. Yep. And they said, oh, these 24-hour news channels, and they just keep talking and talking and talking. And I'm like, well, how do you feel after you watch the news? Oh, I feel horrible. Okay, so what are we doing? So I think we've been in this for so many months now that we are on overload. And there's a difference between being informed and being overwhelmed. And many of us have gone into the overwhelmed territory, and it's the perfect time for us to start shifting into how do we actually adjust. We have to go through the 5 stages of grief. We can't stay in denial forever, right? We have to actually start looking at this and figuring out if this is really going to be going on for the long term, what are we going to do about this? So there's 100 different ways I can answer your question in terms of physiologically what's going on with us, or how we're responding to it in a different way. You know, I don't know what you're interested in today, but I think we could talk about anything.
So I know from the standpoint of, I talk to people a lot about chronic inflammation versus acute inflammation, right? We need inflammation in our bodies. We need to be able to respond to a burn or a cut or an injury in an acute way. But when inflammation turns chronic, it's very devastating to our bodies, right? It's the cause of so many illnesses. And I would love for you to talk to people about how stress does what it does, because it's sort of similar in a way.
It is.
Explain that to us from the standpoint of the brain.
Okay. So I have a whole chapter on this in the book of like the basics. It's not like a science chapter, but it's the basics, but I'll summarize it in a minute. We are wired, the emergency system we have in our brain sends chemical messages when it senses danger, and our adrenal glands respond with a number of different hormones, cortisol being one of them.
Right.
And adrenaline, norepinephrine, we get our fight or flight. So we're wired to kind of run from bears. So if we see the bear, we're either going to fight the bear or run from the bear, but we have that adrenaline going. Our bodies then expect we get out of that situation and then we can recover. Part of that, because we have to run or fight, is the cortisol helps get the glucose, our energy, into the muscles and the tissues so we can fight or run. And it happens all very kind of automatically. But the problem is when crisis just keeps going and going and going, and our brains can't recover and our adrenal glands can't recover, then we can kind of get into this mode of just feeling tired and having muscle tension and having all these physical symptoms, because that whole stress response system isn't wired to do chronic stress.
Right. No, I like that a lot. And chronic stress is just so detrimental to us. I know, I'm surrounded by people like you and all these amazing experts. And I think of myself as having a lot of tools, and even in our own home. I mean, we are experiencing this because in the beginning it was like, oh, we've got this, we've got this, we've got the skill, we know what we're doing. And then it goes on and on and on. And then someone you love dies, and then school's not starting, and then social stuff is happening. And it just begins to be too much. And I know at one point I just started to lose it. Like I was just, and we started
several times, Jana, several times.
And but I know, I started reaching out to a lot of the professionals, and you just are such a great resource for people going through this. And I use a shotgun approach. I don't do one thing. I'm one of those people, they say tiny habits, tiny steps. Yeah, I need to jump the canyon. Whenever I'm suffering, it's like I jump the canyon, and not everybody's like that. So we want to be able to talk to people about both. But for me, it was like I went in the oxygen chamber and I started meditating more, and I like baths and, lavender tea. And I was doing all like praying and like just so many things, because I felt like I just needed it all the way around, exercise and diet. And I'm not one of those people who feels like I can do one thing and figure it all out. So, but for people who need those one things, what's one thing someone can do right now?
Yes. So one, I'd say stop the doom scrolling.
Yes.
And limit your exposure and create a space on social media that is positive. I've really had to limit Facebook because I can't control what I'm seeing. And I created like a secret Instagram account. I have my Dr. Love Instagram, but I have this one under a different name. And I just follow artists, and I love design. So I follow all these designers, and it's only eye candy. There is nothing on there that's stressful. And I think there are things that are going on that require response for us, but we have to think about what we value, and how we want to respond. So do we want to have a negative voice and complain about everything? I don't want to read that. No one wants to read that. Don't be against things before things, right? And decide what your voice is going to be and use it wisely. But for me, I think it's really important to pull off of certain types of social media where you can't filter what you're seeing. We need to have a space in our lives that's free of doom, even if it's a little space.
I agree. I really, really try not to watch the news other than to make sure like my immediate vicinity is safe. But other than that, I really try to stay off the news, and I don't go on social media except to answer questions for my community. I just have stopped because I actually feel that. And as one of our people is commenting, I think it was Christine Williams, said, now it's not just the news. And she's right. I just commented on this today. People are now calling you on your phone constantly, the robocallers, and telling you about doom and gloom there. It's like, I don't need you calling me. Don't track me down. I'm trying to avoid it. So we have to be very vigilant, right? We have to be warriors for our brain and our health and our sanity. So I love the doom scrolling. Like that's just the perfect way to describe it. So it's very interesting to me why people respond so differently. And maybe this isn't something that we can even cover in this amount of time, but why people respond so differently. Some people just freeze, right? They freeze, they go into this fetal position and they don't know what to do in a crisis. And you'll see them being very depressed in their homes and they're really scared. They don't know what to do. Then some people need to just be doing something like me, I need to be doing something. So I start preparing. That's the trauma nurse in me, I think. But people respond in extremely different ways. And sometimes they get the same outcomes, but their just way of approaching things is different. Why do you think that is? Is it just because of our brain types?
You know, I think I have at least 3 different answers for your question, which lets us know that this is even more complicated than it seems. There's a few things. I think that one, some people are really going through the 5 stages of grief. And through the denial, through the anger and bargaining. And so they're in these different stages. And I think that some people, with all of kind of the politics of the world right now, even something like a health crisis has become very politicized. And there's a difference in humans between having an opinion on something and having a belief.
Yes.
And so if I am of the opinion that I'm not good at math and I take a math test and I get an A, I can say, well, maybe I'm pretty good at math. But if I believe I'm bad at math and get an A, I'm probably going to say, you know what, it must have been a fluke or it was an easy test. You know, that data isn't going to change my belief. And we have shifted in our society right now to more beliefs than opinions. And so when we talk about things like a pandemic or, you know, anything else that's going on right now, people are held in. And many people are unable to take in the actual science and information. It's changing rapidly. I used to be a chemist. And so I explained to my patients, like, when we're dealing with ourselves and when we're dealing with things, we have to think like a scientist and not be attached to the outcome. Right. You know, if my hypothesis is, you know, A plus B equals C, and I run my experiment and A plus B equals J, I'm not a failure because my hypothesis was wrong. My next question is, well, gosh, why is that? And either way, I get this publication. We're learning and growing. You can't have a belief and try to prove your belief through your science. And so I think right now, people everywhere are kind of feeling this tug that somehow their belief systems are being attacked or disrupted by what's going on.
From both sides. Everybody feels like their beliefs are being attacked.
I agree with you 100%. Everyone does. And it's not just in our country. Globally, this is happening. But we have to figure out, how do we get into a more kind of open-minded thought process because we have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be over next week.
No.
This is going to be going on for a year, for 2 years. We don't even know. And so we are going to be happiest.
In fact, the world may never be the same. So,
never.
I mean, clearly something is changing. And so it might not be the same. So how do we get to that new normal and stop trying to make it go backwards? We all want our lives back, but maybe getting your life back is something new. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that that what you just said is perfect. Getting your life back means something new.
Mm.
We are wired to hate change because, again, primitive survival. We don't want to leave the cave and move to a different cave because we don't know where the wolves and bears live in that new area. So even though we don't have wolves and bears, we have a virus. We are afraid of change and we don't like it. And humans fight change. We can want to change. This is why I have a job. Logically, I want to change. Emotionally, I don't want to change. This is why I'm employed. My emotions are not logical. So I want to lose weight. I want to be healthy, but I really just want to get a pizza and sit on my couch and watch Netflix. So it's like, I don't really want to do the things I want to do. So our minds work against us in that way when we have to think about change. And I think the hardest thing is, Janet, we as a society, as a world, are coming up on a big bend ahead and we can't see what's around the corner. So we can't even prepare.
Yeah.
Everything we've done in life, we've prepared for. I prepared to go to medical school. I prepared for all my boards. We prepared.
That's the scary thing. Yeah.
Right. A woman doesn't get pregnant and have a child 5 minutes later. We have, a 9-10 month process when we have time to prepare for these things and get used to these ideas. And we don't know how to do that right now.
Well, and especially for parents, moms, like the idea that we can't know what to do to keep our kids safe always. I mean, that's a really disconcerting feeling. And so I know a lot of moms who are having a hard time with that. It's like they just, and now they're also having to adapt to this whole new way of life on top of that. But I heard you say something and I think it's really important. I love what you said. So this idea that we're going to head to a new normal, I feel like we need to think about, rather than trying to go backwards and trying to control what we're doing, it's almost like what we want needs to change. Did I just lose her? Did she go away? Did we lose Dr. Farrell or did you guys lose me? I'm still live, it looks like. Okay, well, hopefully Dr. Farrell's going to come back on because I'm really enjoying that. But what I do want to talk about in case she doesn't, there she is. Okay. There you are.
Okay, sorry about that.
I've been having technology issues all day, so no problem. But I feel like if we were able to change what we actually want, we would be happier. So as I heard this definition, happiness is wanting what you have, and success is So happiness is wanting what you have, and success is having what you want. But wanting what you have, if you really think about that, it's like if we change our normal and our expectations of what we're supposed to be doing, or how things are supposed to be, if we can change the norm. And that's not to say that we have to let go of our values. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm saying is we can't change what's happening right now. I mean, argue with reality, welcome to hell, right? But we might be able to just think about things differently. Maybe I don't need to want to go to Hawaii right now because it's just going to make me
not going to happen. Right.
It didn't happen 3 times. So it's making
me tell you, Tana, I really want to win the lottery. I really, really do. But if my hope is just on winning the lottery, I will always be disappointed. Right. Because, I mean, it's really not going to happen.
What if you could tie your happiness to helping other people? What if you could tie your happiness to wanting to do things differently? Is I think what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And I think that that's a challenge because really the only thing any of us can control is here.
Yeah.
It's ourselves. It's how we think. And I spend a lot of my days talking to my patients about how we think when we go down these rabbit trails and just start spinning on these thoughts, I have to stop and ask myself, is this serving a purpose?
Yeah.
And this is where knowing ourselves becomes really important, because the context in which this is happening to us is all different.
Right.
So my response to this will be different than yours and different to anyone watching, because my background is and life experiences are different than each of yours, and yours are different than mine. And we respond based on our past experiences. Our brain keeps a log. And when something happens that's similar to something that happened in the past, it goes, oh, here's this danger warning again.
Right.
So, well, you know, one of my favorite sayings in our field, in my life actually also, is if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Mm.
Recognizing that if I'm responding in a way that is disproportionate for what's going on right now, then my response isn't about what's going on right now. It's about something in the past.
Right.
And so in a time in history where people are having very exaggerated stress responses,
Mm-hmm.
we need to look at ours and find out where they're based and why.
Yes.
Many responses are justified, right? I want social change.
Right.
I feel that's justified, you know, and we feel justified in standing up for the things that we value. However, I have very sensitive spots because of my background, and there are things that bother me more than other people. And if I can be aware of that, then that helps me actually cope with what's going on now and separate the present from all of the things that have reminded me in the past. So someone who has a trigger of not feeling in control is probably going crazy right now.
Yes.
Angry, irritated all the time. Right.
So I feel very fortunate, because obviously being married to who I'm married to is a game changer, literally a game changer. But we have very mismatched anxiety. So his anxiety has more to do with the virus. Mine has more to do, because of what you just said, my triggers, my background, my triggers. Mine has to do with feeling safe. And so I get triggered by certain things that I see, because, and I didn't even recognize it at first, but it reminded me of a childhood that was very unsafe. In fact, my book coming out is called The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. It's about overcoming trauma. And so when my environment feels out of control, I get triggered big time. So our anxiety has been super mismatched. But because we have some of these skills, he's been able to help me through it. I joke with him. I'm like, your brain is the happiest place on earth. You've got Mickey and Minnie doing the waltz. It's like Disneyland, right? But mine is not. I'm always looking for the threat. I'm always looking for the scary thing, and I need to always be preparing. But understanding that has been life-changing.
Yes.
So I love that you are doing that work, because that's what a lot of our calls to Amen clinics are right now. People's anxiety is just way out of control. It's mismatched with other people in their lives, and they need someone. So if people want to reach out to you, I've got a number here just in case, because I know people watching. I'm watching the comments, so that's why I'm saying this. So Dr. Love, if you really are struggling, I know calls to the suicide hotline went up over 1,000 times, 1,000% when the pandemic started, and it's just been not getting better since the social stuff started also. So if you need to talk to someone, I know you're doing telehealth right now, right? For people.
Yes.
And to reach Dr. Love, you can call 844-818-0616 if you want to speak to somebody. Her new book, When Crisis Strikes, is that right?
Yes.
Crisis Strikes.
When Crisis Strikes, 5 steps to heal your brain, body, and life from chronic stress. And
I love it. When is it coming out? It's such a perfect time.
It's December 29th. It is on pre-sale on Amazon.
Wow, mine's January 5th. We were very close.
Yeah. So we can, I was going to say we can have a book party together, but maybe it'll be online.
Maybe it'll be online. Maybe
I don't know if we're going to have book parties.
A reveal or something like that. That's fantastic. So yeah, mine's a memoir about trauma, and yours is a book about overcoming and managing crisis in your life. So I love that. So they can reach you. How else can they reach you, Dr. Love?
I'm on Instagram at Dr. _author _ Jennifer _ Love.
Okay.
So I'm there.
Perfect. And so if people there's a lot of people that come to us because they don't want to take medications. We are not anti-medication. We are against the indiscriminate use of medication, but medications sometimes are necessary. But for those people who they may not be necessary for, or who don't want to use them for whatever reason, there's also a lot of supplements. I know that you're very savvy with using supplements with people to help just support a calm mood, if you will. Things like I know saffron can be helpful, or serotonin mood support. Can they reach out to you as well and just help walk if they're really scared of medicine? Can they walk through that with you as well?
Well, I mean, sure. And I think all of our doctors are doing that right now. And we even talk about what supplements we're taking, with
Right.
vitamin D to boost immunity,
Definitely.
and curcumins and zinc and certain things that we're all doing. There are not just supplements, but there's a lot that we can do with our lifestyle
Yes.
to address how we're feeling as well. And I just want to circle back to the thing that you mentioned at the very beginning about immunity. And there is a higher rate of autoimmune disorders with people who have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
So we don't all have PTSD, but we are under the stress. And so our immune systems go on guard and we can start attacking things. Ourselves, our own thyroids, or even people can develop allergies against food they've never had an allergy with before. Like our bodies just go on alert. And so studies have shown that one of the top non-medical ways of addressing trauma in the body is actually yoga.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing it online
with YouTube. Like that's something you can do. Because I've got my 10-year-old niece doing it. So that's fantastic. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I have my co-author for my book is from Norway. And so I had several writing trips to Norway and I had a fabulous yoga instructor there. So I just watch her stuff on YouTube and I do the yoga here with her. So it's really great. So there are things, non-medication, non-supplement, any like lifestyle that can really make a difference. And you know, a study came out, I just wrote an article and did some research, and there was a study early on that showed 1 in 3 Americans admitted to drinking while they're working from home.
Oh, wow.
During work hours. Yeah. 40% in California and New York, 50% in Kansas and Idaho and Iowa, and I think Virginia, and 67% in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
So we really need to take stock of, we had these coping strategies at the beginning that were maybe a little regressive. Maybe people were having an extra glass of wine or having a glass of wine regularly. We are now 5 months into this.
Right.
And we need to really be paying attention to healthy behaviors.
Right. That idea that, I can do this because it's temporary. It's a
pandemic. It doesn't matter.
Right. Because now it's not about you deserve it because you're under stress. It's about, is it worth it to your health and to the health of your family? I mean, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I love this. So when crisis strikes, available December 2020. I'm going to read that number one more time. 844-818-0616. I love that. And if you can also go to my website and find different links. You can also reach out and find that phone number on my website, tannaamen.com. And I just want to say next week, we are going to, same time. I have a special guest that week as well. They're from, actually 2 guests from the Social Ninjas podcast, Kyle Mitchell and Jeremy Green. They've both suffered extreme social anxiety and now advocate to help others overcome. And so please share this video. If you've learned something from Dr. Love, share this video, tag 3 friends, and I will enter you in a drawing to win a 6-month Brain Warriors Way online course valued at $395. And we will see you next week at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Thank you. Thanks Dr.
For having me, Tana.
It was so great.